big hip swing, more muscular turn.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Europe is Coming podcast. I'm joined by John Singleton as ever. My name's Adam Giles. And hi, John. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to be back. We had Chris on last week for a programming update.
How did that go?
It was good. I think it's very informative, especially for users. Like, it's nice to go through. Because we've been doing the podcast on YouTube, we also then decided to take this, kind of copy this format on and over. So, for people who are following the program, it's just useful to know a bit of the why behind and some of the structure that we're following.
Yeah, epic. And what's been going on? For listeners, I've been away for a week, hence me not being around. But what's been going on in the last few weeks since our last record?
There's been a lot of CrossFits from our side. We had last weekend we had the Norwegian youth team, so it's from International Functional Fitness. They came over to Mallorca, 10 athletes under 21. It was a really good group and a really good incentive. I put a story out about it, but I'm gonna it's something to talk about actually, maybe. And then we had quarterfinals this weekend.
Yeah, I've been catching up on all the quarterfinal stuff since coming back. Seems like there is a bit of chat about that. So do you want to start with quarterfinals and kind of wrap up the Open Go, talk about the quarterfinals?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a good place to start with the programming.
Yeah, perfect. So I've actually I've pulled up the programming up, so I'll put that on screen for those again who check out our videos. We are live on YouTube, just as a little reminder. So if you do fancy coming on, joining us live and adding comments, you can do so 6 p.m. UK time, GMT, or 7 p.m. Spanish time. So we're on live now. But if you are listening to us on the audio, as ever, welcome. You just won't be able to see what we're sharing, and I'll try and read it out as best I can without tripping over my words. So let me share this on the screen. So, quarterfinals 2026 workout one. Before we go into the workouts, what did you think of them as a whole, John? Did you have any thoughts?
Yes. We've been speaking about a bit the tendency of CrossFit to go kind of heavier or more complex for a few times. And the trouble is, when CrossFit tends to do it, other people in the ecosystem tend to do it. So that means, even local competitions kind of search to go heavier or complex gymnastics, whatever it may be. And there's really something, I've always enjoyed the old school CrossFit where actually rep speed matter, just pure conditioning. You don't have to be ridiculously strong, or you don't have to be able to string together, or be able to do this kind of weird stuff upside down, whatever it may be, just kind of classic CrossFit workouts. And I think big picture, these really achieve that. They just, it's basically kind of rep speed, how quickly you can move, and I think that's been a bit forgotten. It's just been associated with the Open, and I hope that this trend would actually continue more into the games as well. Okay, we can talk about some things like, is it very similar to Open? Yeah, okay. And there's another big factor in this, that it doesn't necessarily mean that much in terms of 2,000 people go through to the next stage. Okay, there's some competitions like Turin and French are using like specific parts of the leaderboard and various things, but like big picture, when 2,000 people qualified to the next stage, it's also not as relevant.
I think that's a good point. My initial thought when I looked at this, I was like, oh, these look really fun, these workouts. There's 4 workouts. But I tell you, my immediate thought was, this looks like an Open. Yeah. This looks like we've done, the Open was actually like the pre-Open, and this is the real Open. These are like 4 really cool Open workouts. And yeah, I was kind of a bit like, what's to your point as well, if only 2,000 are going through, and then there's also an article to say that, which I'm sure we'll touch on Barbell Spin, about how some of the semi-finals aren't going to use quarterfinals for qualifying. Yeah, I think the relevancy is a really valid point to bring up, and what kind of what are these for? And I've seen some people in the communities I'm plugged into kind of getting excited about doing them, but it kind of feels like the more advanced people in the gyms at or open.
Yeah, I also I would like to see open workouts at games level, because I think it's really interesting, and I think it's actually sometimes more impressive when when you see like Colton go through this like this workout in particular, like how quickly he can do the burpees, how quickly his overhead squats are. And it's not like, okay, well, they can hit a 130 kilo snatch, or they can do like pirouettes and all these different things. I don't see why like open style workouts have been associated with being like less important at a higher level. It's like everyone's kind of because everyone can do the movements doesn't mean it takes away from them being included in the high level competition. Because I would still argue one of the most exciting workouts in recent games was like that sprint snatch ladder. More or less. Okay, and I still think maybe it's a bit heavy anyway, but basically everyone could go unbroken. And when everyone can go unbroken, it starts to be like a really interesting movement speed, or just upward capacity, or how there's certain other things that go into it. So in general, I have to say that I think it's good that there's not necessarily a big heavy lift. It's good that there's not like some gymnastic factor that's going to create a bottleneck where if you can do it or can't do it, you get through. Because I think you're just testing, ultimately you're testing like what CrossFit got known for. I mean, this is really where I started CrossFit. Okay. Even back then the weights were lighter still, but it's old school CrossFit. And I'm all for this being in later stages of competition and not just associated with the open.
Yeah, agreed. So for those, again, audio, if you're with us on video, you'll see what we're looking at, but I'll just read out workout one. It's 4 time. You've got 10 50-foot shuttle runs, then 20 overhead squats, then 30 burpees over the bar. Then you rest a minute, then another 30 burpees over the bar, 20 overhead squats, and then finishing with 10 50-foot shuttle runs. It's a 12-minute time cap, and it's 80 pounds or 36 kilos for the ladies on the barbell, or 150 pounds, otherwise known as 52 kilos for the gents. So as you mentioned, not super heavy. I mean, not light like that. They're going to sting, especially after all the hip hinging we did in the open. Hopes everyone's hips have recovered, lower backs have recovered from that, because we've got quite a lot going on here as well. Some more burpees, but it is kind of. I imagine for like the elite people, this is going to be a full on sprint.
Yeah, like the movement speed. There's no like, just as we're talking about, there's no real point in this where it's like, okay. You're going to have to break, or you have to think about things. It's just moving quickly. I mean, we did this with the athletes on Friday, and the biggest feedback is that the legs get really pumped on that second set of shuttle runs. And 40 overhead squats at 36 kilos. So that's it's still heavy. It would exclude anyone who's just well conditioned.
Yeah, it's that annoying volume and weight where it's doable, but the last few reps really start to like, you get some wobble going on and stuff like that, unless you've got really strong overhead stability.
And we'll see athletes, who haven't classically done well in the CrossFit ecosystem, because they've been cut off. Like we know in CrossFit right now, if you're not strong enough, you are just punished. You can't lift a certain weight. It's just like you shouldn't even enter into the ecosystem really at a competitive level, because for whatever reason, strength was just so popular for a period and it really developed really fast. But we'll see like different athletes on the leaderboard do really well at this stuff who we haven't seen before, just because they're not limited by the weights now.
For sure. So that's workout one. Looks good. Sprint. I'm sure it's gassy. Workout number two. I'll be honest, this is my favorite out of a lot of them. I quite like anything with like a dumbbell or barbell and some muscle ups in there as well. So this is 4 time, and you can complete this anyhow you like. So I love these types of workouts. Choose your own adventures. I don't know if it's because I was a nerd when I was a kid and like did those dice and book games, but I like a choose your own adventure. So it's 80 dumbbell hang squat cleans, and then 40 bar muscle ups. Okay, and the time cap is 15 minutes. It's a 35 pound or 15 kilo dumbbell for ladies, which is pretty standard stuff, and then a 50 pound or 22.5 kilo dumbbell for the gents. And I think the kind of slight rogue factor here is the fact that we've got hang squat cleans. Don't always see a hang squat clean for a dumbbell. It's often a power clean jerk or something like that, or we start to see these maybe a bit more in snatches. I haven't seen a hang squat clean with a dumbbell for a long time.
Yeah, it's true. And as you said, I think it's quite interesting. It allows people to strategize and think a bit more, and ultimately the outcome ends up being the same, no matter which road you take.
Like for me, I would probably do this in break them into sets like of 20-10, just because that way I can kind of flush a little bit and not. If I did bigger sets, I reckon I'd probably blow up a bit more, but that's just me personally. But I'd love to see some of the games athletes just trying to go unbroken on those bar muscle ups at the end as a big set.
Yeah, the tricky thing in this workout for that level is that the bar muscle ups just became irrelevant. It all was about the hang squat cleans, because for those guys, fresh, a lot of them can just do 40 bar muscle ups unbroken. It wouldn't be that surprising for an athlete to do that at that level. And so it just became about the volume of dumbbell hang squat cleans, and they became tricky. People had to go into small sets, and it's a lot of reps, a lot of grip. It's it's just one of those raw movements where you kind of still holding on. There's less technique than a barbell in the sense you've got to really grip onto the dumbbells and kind of throw them in position. And I think this is if we kind of nitpick on the workouts, I think this would be an interesting one if you change the bar muscle ups to ring muscle ups, because then the importance of the ring muscle ups would have been more significant. Whereas now it's okay, they use them in some ways as a bit of a break for the dividing up their dumbbell hang squat cleans. But yes, I think it was actually it's a savage workout. Doing 80 dumbbell hang squat cleans at 22.5, it's just it's tough. And I think we'll see some quick times coming up through here. It's a bit I think the leaderboard gets finalized in a couple of hours or so.
Okay.
So it'll be interesting to see the times that come in.
Definitely. Excuse me. One of the things I was also thinking with this is I'm really going to be really intrigued to see how the standards of the dumbbell hang squat cleans, whether they stay kind of in a good position with the speed and the volume of these, because it's a movement that can get a bit squirrely, and I think we'll see some people trying to go fast when maybe we get a few sneaky no reps kind of creeping in.
And it's an interesting one this year where there wasn't it was a strange terminology, but it was a video wasn't required, but we might ask you to show a video, and there was we're announcing the workouts now, but just don't do them now. It's a weird set of rules around the filming and stuff. And actually, one thing I would add on to that, I think it was so good that the floor plans were super simple. It just makes life for people setting it up so much easier than having to measure ropes and do this distance from the rower, this distance to the rope, this distance to the bar, and it creates a lot of filming headaches basically. So that's another general thing I'd say, that the setup was a really nice.
Yeah, I think it's always tricky with those sorts of things. If you've done a few qualifiers, you've done a few quarterfinals, you'll know the pain of kind of recording everything and then just forgetting to show one bit, or you haven't measured something on camera, and when it's easy, it is better. But yeah, as you mentioned, this is the one thing I had heard over the last week was the whole video review system, and it sounds like unless you're basically going to be winning money for winning one of the workouts, you don't really need to submit a video, but you could get called to if they question your time, which is very ambiguous. And I think there's been a lot of people that have been frustrated by that. My immediate thought was, I feel like the quarterfinals stage, because of the way that people are qualifying to the games and because of how many go through in this stage, and like you said, the relevancy, I feel like the quarterfinals is now more for the people in the box who are competitive but aren't going to get to the latter stages. It's a chance for them to see how they rank against their friends or against people in other gyms. And now you don't have to submit a video. There's going to be a lot of people calling other people out for legitimacy of score, and I think that's a problem. I kind of think that maybe CrossFit's doing this because of the personnel power it takes to check and review all these things, and completely understand that, especially when they've had such challenges with resources in the last few years. But I don't know. I think there could be a lot of bad vibes around the scores coming out.
Yeah, I also think it just reflects that it's not a great system. Because you go, okay, well, we're going to qualify 2,000 athletes through to the next stage. But, we're not really going to verify if anyone puts their score in. Okay, we may randomly ask the 1,500 athlete to submit. But if you're making semifinals into like a prestigious thing to go to, well, then there should be like at least some quality control. Yeah, like, okay, if you want to give a good time, and okay, the chances are your video is not going to get submitted, so you'll be a CrossFit semi-final athlete, which obviously is not I don't think the intended idea of that.
No, it is it's a bit strange, I think. I don't know, we'll see what the knock on is, but that CrossFit have been criticized in the past for doing these stages as ways to make money, and perhaps that is what they're doing, and it's understandable, but at the same time, it's not. I don't know, I think it can cause some real bad feels, and I feel like we don't really need that at the moment in the space around CrossFit. Anyway, workout 3. Workout 3, I'm a big fan of this one as well. I quite like anyone who knows me knows I like double unders and deadlifts. And this was kind of one of the things that we talked about with one of the I think it was the third open workout, about how it was just two rounds, and actually maybe they could have done something clever with ascending, descending reps and ascending weight or something, which they've done here, which I quite like this. You got the first one is 3 rounds of 50 double unders and 10 deadlifts at weight 1, which is the lightest weight. Then 2 rounds of 50 double unders and 10 deadlifts at weight 2, and then 1 round of 50 double unders and 10 deadlifts at weight 3, and that's got a 12-minute time cap. So this is punchy. And then the weights for the ladies are 155, 185, 225, which translate to 70, 83, and 102 kilograms. And then for the gents, it's 225, 275, 315 pounds. And for us Europeans, that is 102, 125, and 143 kilos. So not super heavy, but punchy enough that you'll feel it.
What I would say, CrossFit have been super weird with their time caps. Like, you got the open. Yeah, you get the open where it's like, hey, only a few in the best of the world.
You've got 30 seconds, go.
Yeah. But then here, like the best in the world, we've already a score like Tudor Magda going sub 4 minutes, which is it's pretty insane. But you've got 8 minutes. So it's like there's weird some workouts they've programmed so like basically no one has a chance of finishing. Then you've got other workouts where even like everyone's going to have enough time to finish its level. So it's like I don't know how they're presumably not just randomly making up. There's no standardization to the time cap. It's like okay, we don't want people to finish. Okay, fine.
Maybe Dave's gone back to the hopper. He's literally just pulling out a ball with a piece of paper in it for each component.
Yeah. But again, I really like this workout. As a bias, I also really enjoy double unders and deadlifts, just as long as I don't have to squat. So, Tudor Magda going through at 4 minutes, and I think this is where outrageous. Again it is outrageous, and I think this is where like the old school CrossFit in elite competition is really good to see, because it's something that I'm going to put it out there, 143 kilos and 102 deadlift, 102 kilograms. They're not light. You know,
No.
you've got to have done strength training. You've gone through some years of that development. So it's not like something anyone can do. But as you said, it's not completely unachievable weight for people. And then to see someone go through in sub 4 minutes of this amount of work is so impressive. And I think it's an aspect of CrossFit that should be celebrated more. You know, people talk, the classic common phrase from CrossFit was like, do the commonly uncommonly well. That was something that people spoke about a lot. And this, you could argue, is more common than snatching 130 kilos and doing some pirouettes on your hands.
Yeah, agreed.
But yeah, so I don't know what the quickest times. I like sub 4 minutes. I think it's gonna be hard to beat Tudor Magda on this.
Yeah, that is
also,
rapid.
Noah Olsen came into my mind because he's amazing at both of these movements as well. Like his doubles are just insanely fast, and obviously the weight won't affect him too much.
Yeah, fun workout. I reckon it's going to be a fun one to watch some of the videos if people submit them. They don't have to, but hopefully they do, because I want to see that sub 4 minute from Tudor Magda. And the last workout 4, is another for time. You've got 1,000 meter row, 30 clean and jerks, 1,000 meter row, and then 30 strict handstand push-ups with a time cap of 20 minutes. It's 43 kilos or 95 pounds for the ladies, and 61 kilos or 135 pounds for the men. So basically, Grace with some rowing and handstand push-ups chucked in.
Yeah, and you know, in a very generous time cap, as we just spoke about.
Yeah,
and I think one thing that's interesting about this, you know, none of the workouts are. This is going to be the longest workout, and you know, around 10 minutes. So the longest workout for the guys or the guys and girls doing quarterfinals is basically 10 minutes. So you don't have anything long. You don't have anything like noticeably short. You don't have anything noticeably heavy. You don't have anything noticeably complex. You have what is classic CrossFit, and I think that's why it's good that there's certain things change. Like for example, in this workout, ultimately the one thing that matters was the 30 strict handstand push-ups, because no matter the split that you can gain on the row, the speed of which you can move the clean and jerks in the 1,000 meter row, just in the nature of handstand push-ups, if you can go unbroken, and I think the reason I'd argue that handstand push-ups, especially strict, are not a great movement in competition, is because it's really determined by your morphology. Like if you've got just long arms or short arms, like look at Colton doing strict handstand push-ups. I mean, I think it's actually like quick of him to do strict handstand push-ups than it is normal push-ups. And you know, he's obviously an outlier in that. But you just put the games field across, watch 40 athletes do, and the amount of distance that some people have to travel is just way more than other people. And so it's maybe not the greatest movement for what they want to test.
Yeah, definitely. It's something I've always had a bit of a struggle with, because I've got very long forearms, so very good at deadlifting, hence deadlifting double unders, being a fan of. Very bad at handstand push-ups. I don't know if you remember the standard where we had to put our fist against the wall and measure to our elbow and then add that on top of our head. I can actually clear the line. I was in the same boat as some of the other athletes that were kind of talking about that publicly, and I had to do all kinds of weird stuff to get my heels over the line. So I was like, oh, yes, I am really at a disadvantage. I mean, that was the good thing about that standard. It really showed who had the advantage and who didn't when it came to handstand push-ups.
And I think this was, you know, this is the interesting thing. The rest of the stuff, obviously, it mattered somewhat, but ultimately, if you can hit 30 strict handstand push-ups unbroken with no trouble, you're going to do well in this workout. The one thing the guys did note is that the clean and jerks got a bit heavier than expected. You know, they thought that
row took it out of them a bit more than they thought.
Yeah, you probably row a bit quicker than you want, and so the accumulated fatigue of both of those. But you know, the best, even still, like even if you gained like 20 seconds, 30 seconds, like 30 seconds gaining on that for that level of athlete would be a lot in a row and clean and jerks, like clean and jerks. It's all won or lost on the strict handstand push-ups.
Yeah. So those are the 4 workouts, and I think they look great. I think they look great. Personally, I know this is a personal thing. I think they probably should have been the Open. Charge a bit more for the Open. Do this. Get rid of quarterfinals. Would be my my suggestion. But I think otherwise the workouts look really great, and looking forward to talk to people who have been hitting them this week and see what they've been saying.
Yeah.
If we pull up the leaderboard, let's have a look at that. We got. Is there a leaderboard yet? Hang on. Let me see if I can find it. Leaderboard. Yeah, here we go. Oh, there's nothing in at the moment, scores wise. I don't think.
No, they're still. It's maybe a good way of doing it. When I actually think this would maybe be interesting for the Open as well. But everyone submits their score, and then it just gets released at a certain time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think it's not the worst.
Yeah, we'll have to come back to that next week and have a bit of review of the leaderboard, see who does what, and look at some of the outrageous scores from people like Tudor Magda. I've got the Open leaderboard up as well. Was there anything? I know we kind of went on last week, and the week before we pretty much looked at this, but the leaderboard wasn't finalized. Was there anything that stood out to you looking at the leaderboards that you wanted to highlight that we maybe haven't mentioned before? We did talk about Miriam von Rohr. You actually texted me a few days after we recorded saying that she was playing some games, kind of putting in her
psychological warfare.
Yeah, on her 26.3 score, being around, I think it was around 17 minutes or something, and then she updated to having this time that came in second. I was surprised it was second though. I thought it would have been first, so I'm not sure who beat her. Let me see if I can find that quickly. So this time from a Greek athlete, and I'm sorry, I'm going to really butcher that name, Aphrodite, with a 13:26, just beating Miriam by 9 seconds. Phenomenal time.
Yeah, it's always interesting how the top times separate so much when you go from first to second to third. There's big gaps. Like relatively big gaps, there's 9 seconds, and you've got a huge jump of 26 seconds. Then all of a sudden, as you then go up like the top 3, then it already bunches together. It's just you get these outliers who are just, for some reason, better than everyone else by a significant margin. Yeah.
It is always kind of funny to see when you get someone who's just really good at this 1 or 2 movements and absolutely smash a workout and create these kind of little score anomalies. But it means that Lucy Campbell wins the Open, which I saw that from her Wodapalooza that she almost pulled out of Wodapalooza because she had a slight injury going into that. So to win the Open with a slight injury is really impressive as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great weekend for her, going Wodapalooza victory and a Open win victory. I mean, it gives her a lot of momentum for the season.
Yeah, and some funds as well to fund the season, which I know is helpful when you're kind of trying to get to the games and book hotels and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I think funds are always helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So congratulations to Lucy Campbell. And then on the men's side, let me pull that up. Was there anything that stood out on the men's side of the house? Colton, who got quite a lot of airtime on our previous episodes, taking the win, just being super consistent across all 3 weeks.
Maybe I'm not like super shocked leaderboard. Like Yone, for example, he's up there, but he's won Open and quarterfinals in previous years. We have program athlete mentioned Nico, who's on the leaderboard as well. He managed to hold 5th, which is very good.
Yeah, shout out to Nico. I got his name right this week.
Yeah. And I think one thing that's interesting is that because of the style of programming, and I think we'll see this in quarters as well, that European guys will do better. And as soon as it gets heavier, I think that leaderboard would change quite significantly, and we just see US flags.
Do you think?
That's what I was kind of thinking, because usually quarterfinals is heavier. So we wondered if we'd see that, but because quarterfinals and Open have reflected each other, I think we'll see a similar leaderboard. But as soon as things get heavy, I think that leaderboard just it becomes US flags.
Start seeing like the Dallin Peppers and the Jason Hoppers towards the top end of this.
Yeah, and then you get like a Krennikov or a Garad in there who in some ways like the outliers. But European guys, unfortunately, they're not at the same level, especially when you start going the heavier style of CrossFit.
Yeah. Well, super cool to see Janikowski up there and Harry Lightfoot kind of in 7th, and then Nico, as you mentioned. So good to see some of the European athletes doing well in this. And yeah, looking forward to seeing the quarterfinals leaderboard. So one of the other news stories I saw, and I just kind of wanted to get your take on this, was that let me switch over to this. Article on Barbell Spin: only 4 of the 10 semi-finals will use CrossFit quarterfinals as a qualifier. What did you make of this?
I just think the season's messy. It's like, okay, well, some people use it, some people don't. It's really hard to understand. It's hard to find people who are more invested in the sport, and it's just confusing. It's really confusing.
It is quite a confusing season. I read it and then I'm like, okay, I've got it. And then I talk to someone and they're like, so what's happening? And I'm kind of like stumbling through it, like trying to explain what's going on. And then I'm like, well, this is how actually is that happening? Have I got that right? So the 4, I'll just read out the 4. So French throwdown, the top 19 men and women on the European leaderboard.
This is that 19s are very funny because of all the Roman Khrennikov drama. Like, it's funny they had to put 19 now.
Yeah, so again, we mentioned this in a previous episode that Roman Khrennikov got a special invite to French Throwdown, which caused a bit of a kerfuffle online. Now instead of 20, they're inviting 19 a result. So 19 of the top men and women on the European leaderboard in quarterfinals will receive an invite to compete at the French Throwdown. Backfill invites from the European leaderboard until all 19 spots have been filled. So essentially, if one of those 19 can't make it, it'll backfill to the next person on the leaderboard. Legends Championships, the top 10 men and women from the worldwide quarterfinals leaderboard will be invited to compete at the Legends Championship. So no consistency again. So it's not like the 4 are going to be the same consistency. So we've got 19 spots, then 10 spots, then Syndicate are going to go top 20. So the top 20 athletes from 2025 CrossFit Games received special invites. The rest of the field will be determined based on the performance in quarterfinals. So it sounds like there'll be 20 from last year's games that will get invited, and then 20 from the leaderboard. But again, if people don't accept either one, so if someone from the 2025 games is going somewhere else or already qualified, then there'll be backfill. So I think it's going to be, well, actually, I'll explain Taurian and then we'll have a bit more of a chat about it. But Taurian Pro, athletes looking to qualify for Taurian Pro must do the quarterfinals workouts and submit their scores on the CrossFit Games leaderboard. Athletes must also register for the Taurian Pro qualifier on Competition Corner and enter the same quarterfinals workout scores. The top 30 men and 30 women will be invited to compete in the Taurian Pro, plus an additional 2 discretionary invites per division may be awarded. So all of these competitions are kind of doing their own things, but trying to include the CrossFit Games. What I was going to say is that the challenge with this is no one's going to know what's going on for probably a few weeks, because there's going to be athletes trying to pick their favorite comp, or if they qualified directly through quarterfinals or whatever there's going to be lots of people going all over the place. Then we've got obviously semifinals, online semifinals. I feel like it's going to be 2 weeks of just who's going where and loads of backfills.
Yeah, I mean, no one's really, unfortunately, going to follow. Like, I think there's a simple rule, of having an elevator pitch to be able to explain something. And ultimately, the CrossFit season should by now be an elevator pitch. You do this, you do this, you do this, you go there. Simple. But it just changes all the time. And so it's really hard for a fan base to keep up. And when a fan base can't keep up, they're like, well, if they don't understand something, they're less likely to follow it. And it's just... And I think an interesting statistic to check is how far down these backfills have to go to find someone who will accept the spot. Because I actually think, Syndicate, Legends, maybe even French, because of the European specificity of it, they end up with more. But I think they might have to start going down very far to get athletes who accept these competitions, which I think is another interesting sign of the space. Like, I think these things should have a certain prestige. Like back in the day, people would do anything to get to a regionals.
Mhm.
Whereas now you're just like backfilling down to 100 and something just to fill spots.
Yeah, and one of the things I heard on another podcast was, and I think we got a bit of this last year, where people were getting to these levels and then not being able to do some of the movements or some of the workouts because they didn't quite have the strength, capacity, or skill to be able to perform some of them under fatigue because you're backfilling so far in the end. And it does feel just really messy. Like we've had so many versions of this system. I'm not really sure which one I liked the most of. I think there was, back in the day, I quite liked the old regional and sanctional model. But then also there were some quite good ones where we had the separate competitions and you could kind of go anywhere. But now we seem to have like this weird amalgamation of the two, which doesn't seems to be my least favorite. It seems to be the messiest and the hardest to follow. And especially with media being, again, quite fragmented. There's no clean kind of like documentation of, we used to have the CrossFit put out the weekly update show with all the guys at the desk. And they would kind of like show you people's videos and talk about athletes and then tell you who's going through and basically just tell you everything that's going on. And then without that, it feels all over the place. And you come to different podcasts to try and get a sense of what's going on. And it's quite hard to follow.
I also think there's something about name recognition of back in the day. You would know all 30, 40 European regional athletes.
Mm.
And I think that's actually a good thing at a certain stage for a sport because it allows consistency, it allows a fan base, etc., etc. Okay, obviously you've got new people coming in and surprises happening, but the majority, and now you're like, it's just really hard to keep up because, and it's honestly got so much easier to be a semi-final athlete than it was because of the format that they're doing, that you're having to backfill so far. It also takes some of that, the special nature away from it as well.
Mm. Very much so. It'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. I mean, perhaps it does kind of shake out well and everything's easy to follow and it's just kind of a bit weird now because we've not done this in this way before, but it does feel a bit fragmented and messy and I'm not sure. So we'll see how we go. One other thing that caught my eye this week, sorry, John, was there anything else you wanted to discuss on this before I move us on to the next thing?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think it's a pretty good summary that we don't really know. Like, how it's also like trying to remember how you qualified for all these competitions is tricky. I mean, also to give you a specific example, like we obviously are programming Mad Fitness Festival this year.
Mm-hmm.
Then a lot of people, I know I said they shouldn't do this, but they decided to close the registration as the workouts release. So basically on like when workouts release, they close registration instead of closing registration once the submission window has closed. And that caused like we were getting loads of messages from athletes saying, I want to submit my score, but they couldn't because of this discrepancy. And I think this is where, obviously this is where even event organizers get affected of their own competition because there's no consistency in the season. So it's just really hard for even invested people to understand.
Mm. And how's the Mad Fitness Festival coming along? How's the programming coming along?
Good. I mean, to give some behind the scenes stuff. So everyone had to submit their workouts to CrossFit for review. So our workouts, and that deadline was March. So in theory, every competition around the world who's doing semi-finals have submitted workouts already to CrossFit.
Do you know when you hear back from them? Have they given you a timescale or is it TBC?
TBC. See what happens there. We'll see. I mean, because of that, we've making the decision to release workouts early because it's a big thing for us. We took it as like a big privilege to be able to program a semi-final workout, to be able to take people through to games. And one thing that's really annoyed us over all the years is things being leaked. And it's just sad to see. And obviously we're not in control of the full process. Like we have to submit it to different teams, etc. But I think one thing we're trying to do to mitigate it is release workouts early, so at least it takes away some of the advantage, because it's different knowing, say, a month before than it is knowing 2 days before, because if someone's been able to practice a movement or a workout, they've got a huge advantage compared to the field.
Absolutely. I think there'll be a load of athletes that are really pleased and excited to hear that, and perhaps we can do a bit of a preview episode soon once they're released as well. I'm looking forward to it. Excited to see the workouts. Nice. So one other thing that caught my eye that I thought it would be cool to talk about this week is FitStop. It's a functional fitness franchise that originated in Australia, and it's been going since 2017, and it's expanded to like 170 locations through Australia, New Zealand, and US. But now it's launching Global Games, which is a new worldwide competition based on its training methodology. So we've got another new competition. We mentioned Xenon, which we will do a bit more of a deeper dive in the coming weeks. But it seems like we're hearing about a new competition every week at the moment. They're popping up all over the place. So what it is it's a pairs competition. So it's same-sex and mixed pairs, where teams take on 4 workouts ranging from strength-based, endurance-based, and mixed modality. So we've sort of seen some of this stuff before with other comps, but it's just a slightly different twist on that. I'll quickly read through the events, and then John, I'd love to get your take on this. So here are the workouts. Competitors will compete in 4 events over a course of a 74-minute window. Okay, the first workout is Perform, which is a 14-minute AMRAP. It's you go, I go. 15 calorie C2 bike, 10 American kettlebell swings, 24 and 16 kg, and then 10 box jump overs at 24 inch and 20 inch. We have lift, which is there's a part A and part B. Part A is 0 to 7 minutes to complete a 3 rep max shoulder to overhead. And then lift B is 7 to 14 minutes for a 3 rep max front squat. That's my favorite bit so far. So I quite like squatting. And then we have condition, which is a 4-time 120 meter run, 225 and 175 meter ski erg. So slightly different meterage depending on men or women or mixed team. 120 meter run, then it's 450, 350 meter ski erg, 120 meter run, then 675, 525 meter ski erg, then 120 meter run, 225, 175 meter row, and 120 meter run, and then 450, 350 meter row, and then 120 meter run, and then 675, 525 meter row. That's a 14-minute time cap. And then the last one, which is sweat, which is a 40 meter dumbbell, dual dumbbell walking lunge, spicy 22.5 and 15 kilo dumbbells, 20 synchro alternating dumbbell snatch, same weight, 20 synchro line facing burpees, 40 meter single dumbbell walking lunge, same dumbbell weight, 20 synchro alternating dumbbell snatch, same dumbbell weight, 15 synchro line facing burpees, then a 40 meter synchro single dumbbell walking lunge, again the same weight, and then a 20 synchro alternating dumbbell snatch with the same dumbbell, you guessed it, and then to finish 10 synchro line facing burpees at 14 minutes, and that is it. So the FitStop Global Games will feature 3 competitions beginning on April 18th, 2026 in Singapore. Dates of future competitions in Los Angeles and Brisbane will be announced soon. So nothing in Europe. Sorry, team.
Yeah, I mean, another one. I'm going to just jump to specific first of all. On the workout 3, what type of running machine are they using?
I don't know. It doesn't.
Are they doing? Presumably, it's going to be on a machine. And this is one thing I would say to Hyrox is that the fact they did the running not on machines is like just way better, because I can pretty much guarantee that the run machines won't be calibrated very well. But anyway, that's a bit of a side issue. Also, what weird meterage compared to what really we're used to.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when I was reading it out. It is a bit odd with the kind of 25 increments with 75, 25, 75, 25.
But those things aside, ultimately it's a race to the best with this thing. You know what I mean? It's like, who can Xenon take it? Can Athlex take it? There's like Hybrid Day. There's another one in, like, there's Turf Games. There are a huge amount now, and this is what's frustrating with CrossFit. Like CrossFit have the opportunity to like completely capitalize on all of these things, which they don't seem to be doing. And it's just seeming like the market's just going to be flooded. And I don't know if one of them makes it to become the best one, because ultimately that's what has to happen. Or you have to create the excitement of like, be it Xenon. If Xenon wants to be successful, it has to become known as the event, not like one of the events. And I don't know how they distinguish themselves to a general population, because they're all every one of these companies is going for the volume game. They want to get lots of people in. So it's like, how do you distinguish yourself? Like ultimately, what's the difference between this and Athex? And you go, okay, well, the difference between Xenon, okay, it's 2 days and a lot more volume, significantly more volume. But is that like enough of a distinguishing factor than for like a general public to sign up and pay for? It's also interesting that the pricing point that they're coming in at, it's like $170 compared to the Xenon, which is $900 or something for 2 people. So it's like the world's just trying to figure out where it lands. I mean, I think that this pricing structure would seem a lot more friendly and realistic to me, and this is where the Xenon, I suppose, has gone for like a 2-day thing. So you could argue that's the difference. But I'm rambling a bit. But I think ultimately it's a race to all these guys are just racing to see who can become the event that is the mix between, or the in between of CrossFit, Hyrox, and can they fill the middle of the Venn diagram and kind of own that space?
Yeah, 100%. For me, it just reminds me of when I worked in mobile tech, and you had like Apple with the iPhone, and then you had like on the other side of the fence. So it's like almost like Hyrox is being like the Apple now. They've kind of created this brand that's just a behemoth, and they're plowing on. And then all the others are like Android phones, where they're just kind of coming out and they're just trying to become like the alternative to that, where you've kind of just got like Samsung and HTC and all these other brands, like coming out and bringing out devices. And it feels like a bit like that with competitions, where Hyrox have established themselves and CrossFit is kind of just feels like it's just for the elite. And then everyone else is like, okay, we need to create the Hyrox for CrossFit, is basically what it feels like.
Yeah, it's hard to appreciate just how well Hyrox is doing. Like, they're just getting tens of thousands of people to their events and just continue to make good decisions. Like one of the I wrote like a little bit of a thought piece to put out, and that thought piece was about so the Norwegian functional fitness camp that we had here last week was completely government funded. When I say government funded, it was funded by Norwegian government organization. They're North3F, they're called. And because they are government funded, they have memberships, they were able to pay for 10 under 21 athletes to come here to Mallorca, do a training camp, have a great experience, and just support the next generation. And that's purely because it's an official sport. That's the reason why they can do it. And even though CrossFit calls itself the sport of fitness or whatever it wants to call itself, it's not a sport. Like in the definition of a governmental organization, it's not a sport. And that limits the amount of help it can give to people, and especially give to the next generation. Like if you're a sports athlete, you might get time off school, you might get funding for trips, you get funding for competitions, you get all kinds of help that you don't get even if you're like a professional CrossFit athlete. It means nothing in the eyes of the government, even though it might be the biggest sport in the world, if they're not recognized. And this is what Hyrox has done. I mean, because of their Olympic goals, it's a bit different, but they've already associated with the World Triathlon Association because they have understood the importance of that criteria. And the trouble at CrossFit in the space, you've got the International Functional Fitness Federation, which ultimately are basically a competitor to CrossFit. So it's not because there's no synergy in the world, really, an International Functional Fitness Federation is another competitor that takes away from CrossFit rather than add to it. And there's nothing, all of these things seemingly, there's Fit Games, the Fit Stop Games, or Athics, or whatever. I know Xenom's associated with CrossFit, so they've kind of done things in a bit of a different way. But all the other things ultimately dilute the brand. And, I understand that they promote the methodology, but, to gym goers, because CrossFit's not there on the label, they're not going to associate an Athics with CrossFit, or, they use mixed modality competition. It's 100% a CrossFit thing. But because of the way it's being managed, none of that is being publicized to a general population, which would then help affiliates grow or whatever. It's just like... it's detracting rather than adding it. It's like they're not turning things into assets.
Do you have a view of what you think could support that?
I think it's the way. So certain things, like, for example, as we kind of pick this down a bit, but one of the big things was never letting Globo gyms use the word CrossFit.
Mm-hmm.
And so this had, like, the thought process was, like, if you're a big chain, you're kind of, they were like anti-establishment, etc. Globo gyms were the establishment. But the trouble was, the gyms were like, well, I don't care, we'll just call it XFit, And so you had these huge, powerful gym chains that could have all promoted the word CrossFit and made that brand a lot more famous. But instead, they just called it XFit or Functional Fitness. And then this organization comes in that's the Functional Fitness. They've got an idea to make CrossFit into an official sport. Instead of partnering with them to help support that growth, they then just exclude, basically just ignore them and go against it. So CrossFit doesn't become a sport. And I'm not saying like the CrossFit Games have to officially do that, but a lot, like if you look at football, for example, they obviously have a private organization and a public organization, and the public organization is hugely involved with helping support the next generation come through, and the private organization continues as it goes through. So I think that's actually like a fundamental thing of this protection of the name, and I don't think it's managed in the best way. And now, now to change all of this is a whole different topic, because I think that the decisions have gone so far down the road that backtracking on these decisions is now just like a really messy process. And so, I think a big thing to start would be, trying to create a different structure that allows people to come to in-person events, create community, support gym growth. Because one thing is obvious: people want to go and participate in live events and grow community. And though both of those things fit very much in the value of CrossFit, so it doesn't even go against the curve in that way.
Yeah, and we've talked about it a few times with the sale of CrossFit kind of being on the table, being taken off the table, and what is the direction of CrossFit? I think until there's some stability and solidification around CrossFit, the brand, the business, and the games, I think this is probably going to be a topic that we keep revisiting.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and I think each month that goes by, the more people you see like don't wave the flag as strongly, and that's a sad thing that goes around, and the world gets diluted. Someone goes, does an Athics, someone goes and does this, and that association with doing CrossFit gets less and less and less as the brand's not present anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we will keep an eye on that as we go forwards. We're coming to the end of our time this week. Is there anything else you wanted to discuss, John, before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so. we'll see the quarter of final results, so what comes through, and then it's kind of following semi-finals. I believe Mayhem's up in a couple of weeks, which will be the first one. So it's going to be interesting to see how those pan out. We've got the WFP starting to happen, so there's a lot going on, and you've also got to think CrossFit starts to announce something about a new CEO, which will be an interesting decision on which direction they want to take things. You know, do they just take Castro again? Do they pick someone internally? Do they look out? So it's going to be interesting to see.
Absolutely. And just an update, I mentioned at the top of the show that we record these at 6 p.m. UK time and 7 p.m. Spanish time, and you can come join us live on YouTube. Well, actually, next week we're going to change that. We're going to go back an hour. So we're going to record next week live will be at 7 p.m. UK time, 8 p.m. Spanish time. Okay, so if you want to come,
we'll chat about that. But I was actually going to say, I'll send a message. Okay,
cool. All right, team. Well,
but also on that topic, funnily enough, I believe it's in like 1 or 2 weeks, we have an interview with Mark, the founder of Athletics. So we will also be able to dive deeper into these questions about, like, you know, how they're going to differentiate themselves and what they think about this world right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, gang, we'll confirm time next week when we're live. We are just kind of playing around with exactly the best time, so that we can get people like yourself logging in and viewing live. And yeah, that interview with Mark is coming soon. So keep your eyes peeled for that. That'll be out in a couple of weeks. And as mentioned, as always, please do leave likes, comments, and shares and all that good stuff. But you can email us as well. In the description, you'll see there's an email account. You can email us and ask any questions. Give us some suggestions of topics you want to talk about, or anything that we've talked about in the last few weeks and months that you want to add your say and your voice to and want us to discuss. Then please do email us in. And with that, I'll draw the show to an end. John, thank you very much. It's been good to see you.
Thank you.
And yeah, we'll speak to you next week.